Some Muslims think that music and dancing are haram and should be forgiven, not forgiven, wrong word, Freudian slip, forbidden, haram, that it's forbidden. So if I were to say, music, forbidden, haram, that is just bonkers. Now some people are going to find that extremely offensive, aren't they? Have I offended sensibilities? Do I have...
Hi everybody, how you all doing? Welcome back again to another Bit1 amazing reaction video. Guys, we are going to be checking out this video from Douglas Murray, and the title is, do we have the right to offend? Wow, guys, I believe this is going to be an interesting one. So no further talking, let's dive into it and check it out.
What some Muslims do in response to that. That's not a lie, that's just a statement of fact.
Many of the most important social freedoms and advances have been brought about by people who cause... Many of the most important social freedoms and advances have been brought about by people who caused great offence in their time. Galileo, Charles Darwin, they caused offence to the church because they spoke out against the church orthodoxy. The first people who spoke out against slavery caused great offence. Those who denounced the church and the way the church supported slavery, they were denounced and condemned for causing offence.
Is there anything I could say that would offend you?
Well, there may be plenty of things you can say, but you have the right to say them, providing you don't incite violence against other human beings.
But how do we not legislate is the wrong word, but how do we make sure that people don't cross that line? Because it's a very grey area, isn't it? Miriam, you wanted to come back in.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, there are certainly things that are offensive, but do we need to offend people by saying them? I mean, there's a way of saying things. We can discuss the institution of the monarchy in this country without insulting the Queen. It therefore makes it perfectly reasonable and possible to discuss, I think, the tenets and beliefs of any other religion without insulting sensibilities.
So insulting sensibilities, that's interesting, without insulting sensibilities. Okay, some Muslims think that music and dancing are haram and should be forgiven, not forgiven, wrong word, Freudian slip, forbidden, haram, that it's forbidden. So if I were to say, music, forbidden, haram, that is just bonkers. Now some people are going to find that extremely offensive, aren't they? Have I offended sensibilities? Do I have the right to say that?
I think if people that are used to having debates within the interfaith debates are pretty familiar with the codes and practices of different religions and understand where those boundaries lie. And certainly that would not be one of those boundaries. But there are certain things that even people with no religion would find offensive. If I was to come on TV and start insulting, you know, I mean, I hate to be crass, but your mother, that would be extremely offensive. Now, we feel as strongly about our mothers as we do about the Prophet Muhammad. That doesn't mean you can't discuss what he says, the message he brings.
People in this country
put up with being offended.
Walking down the street, you get offended. There's somebody wearing something you don't like, or you get offended. It's part of being grown up. It's just accepting the fact that you get your feelings trodden upon. Does it mean you have to deliberately tread on people's feelings? No, not necessarily.
Exactly.
But what you cannot do is to ring-fence one ideology through fear, intimidation, or anything else. And that is what we see happening. That's what Ben Elton was saying.
Richard Dawkins, Professor, you've obviously, I mean, a lot of people have taken offence at some of the things that you've written. You know, they feel personally offended because they feel that their faith, which is so dear to them, and their belief, which they cherish, has, you know, you're criticising it. Do you think about that?
I don't go out of my way to offend.
No, but do you think about the possible consequences?
If people are offended, then they may argue against me. All I use is words. There's a radical distinction between using words and violence, and incitement to violence. The Salman Rushdie affair absolutely brings this out. Salman Rushdie simply wrote a book. That's what he did. He wrote a book. He was threatened with death. He was threatened with death by baying crowds in this country. People burned his books. They demanded the death penalty. And
some leading parliamentarians suggested that the paperback shouldn't come out.
Some leading parliamentarians, some leading clergymen, some leading bishops sided with the Ayatollah Khomeini rather than sided with this very distinguished novelist who did no more than put words on paper. That is a radical distinction.
Can I let Miriam come back in?
I do sort of feel like we're talking about issues in a vacuum here. I mean, you're talking about the fatwa against Salman Rushdie. Are we forgetting that we're talking about Khomeini? Are we forgetting that we're talking about the 1979 revolution and the context in which that was occurring? And similarly, when we talk about, you know, the reaction, the highly unacceptable, violent reaction of some Muslims, I would like to add, had to films like Geert Wilders' films and Van Gogh's film, etc., you know, we're almost talking like it's completely decontextualized. It's not happening in a vacuum.
Okay.
Muslims around the world feel victimized.
You're completely wrong. One of the people who supported the fatwa against Salman Rushdie was now Sir Iqbal Sakrani, a leader of the Muslim Council of Britain. He got a knighthood after saying that death was too good for Salman Rushdie. And he's a leader. He was a leader of the Muslim Council of Britain.
A.L. Kennedy, do you think that anything goes?
Yeah, I think we need freedom of speech. What alarms me more than anything is that freedom of speech is being constantly redefined as the right to offend, and it's only the negative aspects that were being shown. And that leads to absurdities like the photographs from the torture at Abu Ghraib are redefined in terms of these photographs are offensive and are causing unrest. And you don't get the dialogue which is about it's offensive to torture people, that causes unrest, and photographs of torture. And you have this absurd situation where the more true something is, and we are quite often talking about questions of belief and questions of factual, provable truth. The more true something is, the more offensive it will be. So, for example, you can't, or you would want to watch putting an article into a newspaper about a corporation because it would offend the corporation. And if it's true, you would want to be even more careful because it would impact even more on the share price. So this whole kind of right to offend seems to prevent truth from appearing now.
And what was so interesting in our earlier debate was we had a Christian evangelical who was, we have to admit, pretty offensive if you were gay, and yet Richard didn't think that that was allowed. So we are not allowed, you know, we are allowed to have Muslims feel offended, but not Christians.
I didn't say she shouldn't speak.
Richard, you said that she was
Christina, allow Richard to come back.
Offensive.
I didn't say she shouldn't speak. Of course she's free to speak. I simply said that her personal opinion is of no interest on a factual matter where there is evidence.
Richard, what do you think that means?
You can always have a difference of opinion, and when there is a difference of opinion, you're pro-homosexuality, she's anti-homosexuality, so be it, you put those opinions out in the arena. Where it gets downright offensive, when you're going to offend millions of people who died in the Holocaust by saying it never happened, that's fundamentally wrong.
But Sir Rabbi, should David Irving not have been, should David Irving not be allowed to talk?
Bishop Tom, let's go on to this. As a final thought, Bishop Tom, cartoons for a second. Can I just take you to a specific point? There have been cartoons of, you know, God, a white man on a cloud in our culture and civilization for eons. You know, it's not something we get concerned about. Why should we make special rules for other people?
But there are different cultures. I mean, what was it, 10 years, 15 years ago, Spitting Image portrayed Jesus Christ as a hippie. We weren't terribly pleased about it, but we live with that culture. The Muslim community in this country said, he's one of our prophets. You don't denigrate our prophet.
The Life of Brian was a similar kerfuffle, wasn't it?
Now, actually, that was a very interesting kind of meeting of different cultures, different habits. And if we're going to share one country, and if we're going to have social cohesion, we've got to respect one another and think before we act. So,
Britain is one of the most...
I have not got the freedom here now to shout fire, because if I do... A lot of people get
fire. You would. You do have the right. If it was on fire, you should shout fire.
Yes, but if it's not on fire, you don't shout fire. There's a limit to it.
So we have so we have to watch our P's and Q's.
We have to watch about shouting fire in the public arena if that is going to damage our social cohesion.
Britain is one of the most multicultural, multi-faith countries in the world. And it's just not possible to carry on in a way you don't offend anyone. The answer is we don't have the right not to be offended, any of us.
Thank you all very much.
Wow guys, what an interesting debate. From the title, do we have the right to offend? The debate was so heated. Like, you guys know that we are living in the society or in the world where there is multi tradition, multi cultures. Yes, because every individuals or every citizens, they have their own cultures. Yes, they have their own cultures to practice, and somehow what this other person practice might be different from what I practice, and what the other country practice might be against what I practice. and somehow, since it's against what I practice, I might condemn it, and they might not even find it likely or funny when I do that, because each and every one of us, we have our own traditions, we have our own cultures, we have our own values. And you guys know that British have their own cultures as well. They have their own traditions, and British is a place where there is freedom of religions. Yes, there is freedom. You have the freedom and the right to practice any kind of religions that you intend to. So guys, just by the title, do we have the right to offense? Like, to my own understanding, that we have the freedom of speech does not guarantee us to insult someone's religions, or to insult someone's cultures, or to insult someone's traditions, because the way you value your traditions and the way you value your cultures and your traditions, that is how another person value his or her own religion. So I think based on the fact that we have that freedom of speech to communicate, to express our feelings, to express how we feel, I think we should be mindful of how we go against or insult other people's cultures or their religions, because everyone that you dislike Mr. A religions, that does not mean that Mr. A dislike his or her religion. You might dislike it, you might not find it worthy, and you might not find it interesting, but them that is practicing the religions or the cultures, they love it and they are comfortable with it. And even Mr. A might not even like your own religions. Yes, they might not like your own way of worship, your values and your traditions. So that is the kind of society that we are living in. Yes, we are living in a society where each and every one of us have our own different religions, our different beliefs and traditions. So I think each and every one of us should try as much as possible to respect other people's culture, to respect other people's religions and traditions. So just like one of the speakers said, he said that somehow you have the right to criticism. Yes, because if you're an individual living in US, living in America, somehow you might get offended. Yes, you might get offended. Someone out there may just, the person may just criticize your own religions or your own traditions. Yes, that is very, very possible, because that is the kind of society we live. So I think you don't have the right not to be offended as long as you are living in this planet. Yes, because it's not the way you reason that another person's reason. So as long as you are not sleeping under your roof, as long as you go out every morning, you go out every day, you meet different kind of people. So somehow you may be offended by different kinds of people. Yes, that is just one of the facts about life. Because as long as you go out, that is for sure, one day you might get offended. One day somebody might just criticize your religions. They might just go against the way you do things because they might not like it. Yes, and they have the right to to express themselves. They have the right to talk about it. They have the right to talk about how and what they felt about what you are doing. So that is the kind of society that we are living in. It's only when you are sleeping inside your house that you don't go out at all. That is the only way that you cannot be offended by someone. But as long as you go out every morning, believe me, somehow you might get offended by some persons. So guys, as long as we live in a society where there is 2, 3, 4 persons, like, you don't have the right not to be offended. Yes, just like what I said before. Somehow you will be offended, and by the time you get offended, you don't have to react in a violent way. You don't have to retaliate in a violent way just because you get offended by someone that that pour out how they feel concerning what you are doing. Okay, because that is the kind of society we live. You don't just have to say, okay, that this person insulted me, this person insulted my own cultures, my own religions, because the religions, or maybe your religions or your cultures, it might be different and it might look somehow to them. So you don't have the right not to be offended. For sure, you must be offended in one way or the other, as long as you live in a country where there is 2, 3 more peoples. And for instance, let's say for instance, the Muslim, you left your religious country to a different religious country. Let's say you left your country to the British, and British is a Christian country, and when you went there, you begin to practice your own religions, your own traditions. A lot of them might find what you are doing, they may find it nasty. A lot might just say, okay, I don't like the way this person practices religion, I don't like this person kind of dressing, and they have the right to talk about it. They have the right. And you as an individual, when these people pour out their feelings, at least it's not wise for you to go violent just because they reacted to something they don't like. And you as a Muslim, you might just say, okay, just look at the Christian, just look at the way they are dressing, just look at the way as the way they worship, and you might just say it. So you reacted to it, and then they don't have that right to bring violence, to say or to react in a negative way or in a violent way based on what you just said. So I think that is the kind of society we live. But as much as possible, we should try to respect each and everyone's traditions, each and everyone's cultures. Okay, and even if you want to react to something, or you should mind the way you react to it, so that the opponent will not get offended. Okay, so guys, I'm really so excited sharing this video with you, and I hope you guys find this video to be very, very interesting. So let me know what to think about this video in the comment section, and I would really appreciate every bit of that. So guys, you stay tuned and see you all in my next one. Bye.